Okay, thank you all for being with us this afternoon. You were not only the composers of these phenomenal rigorous curriculum design units in Newport Mesa, but you also implemented your own units this year. Can someone start us out? How did the implementation in your classroom go? How did your students respond to these units? Who'll start us out?
I'd be happy to. My name is Ryan, and I teach in a 5th, 6th grade gate cluster combo. And this whole process has been such a a highly collaborative process. And anytime you get into a collaborative working model like that, you're bound to get much better results. And what strikes me is when I implemented the results of that process into my classroom, I watched the kids engaged in the same process. They were asked to do something in a highly collaborative manner, and I think the results were light years ahead in terms of what they took away from that experience.
Excellent. Anybody else have some thoughts on what implementation was like in your classrooms?
I'm Shannon, I teach 3rd grade, and as far as the engaging scenario is concerned, coming up with all of us working together to really craft an engaging scenario that included all the important parts. It had to be based off of something that was kind of real world based. They had to have a task, they had to play a role, they had to consider their audience. By considering kind of real world scenarios for them, it kind of brought back a sense of play. And so we were pretending that we were doing all these different tasks. We were pretending to be book editors and professional authors, and we were pretending, and the sense of play that's back in the classroom, but it's play at a very high level, is really kind of refreshing. It's really fun, and the kids, of course, they still, in 3rd grade and in any grade, I think they still love to play. It's kind of make-believe a little bit, so that's been really refreshing. They love it. They've loved them.
Great. Anybody else?
Well, I'll share Gladys Green from 6th grade, and my students' engagement was so intense. At the beginning of the year, they were kind of like, wait a minute, I'm used to multiple choice, very scripted lessons. And so very quickly though, within probably the first unit, they figured out that learning was fun again. And so rather than when we finish a unit up and we wrap it up with our engaging scenario, they're anxiously waiting for the next engaging scenario and the next text. So they're engaged, they're loving learning, and I'm loving teaching. I can never go back to that scripted, boring teaching mythology, and so I love the fact that there's creativity brought back in the classroom.
Excellent, excellent. I've heard that same statement made by so many people who have engaged in this process. Who else has had an experience with learning in the classroom that you'd like to share?
Well, my name is June, and I teach 5th grade, and it's funny when you said that word play, because at the beginning of the year when my partner and I started implementing these, we saw a lot of play, and we thought the kids are never going to be able to be mature enough to pull this off. And we were so excited, but what's been doubly exciting is that as it's evolved, we've seen a whole different student appear, and they've now are really, really involved in working together, and not, they're still playing, but they realize that there's a product at the end and it's going to be their, product. And it's not going to be something that I said, well, you need to do this. And so the play has evolved to an incredible learning experience.
It's authentic. I'm Pam Urbanic, and I teach 4th grade. It's much more authentic learning.
Definitely.
It's genuine. I'm genuine. I always wanted my kids to have the life skills piece first and foremost and the content second. And I think this process really, really does that. They're actually like little business people, and they're learning skills that you can't measure on a test that will take them further in life, above and beyond the actual specific content that you want them to learn. Mm-hmm. And one of the best things that just happened recently is, I don't know that I'm being objective. I feel like my kids are just totally getting it, but one of our units, another team member that's on another RCD committee, she's on the 5th grade committee, but she currently teaches 4th grade, shared with me yesterday that she piloted one of our 4th grade units, and she was like sharing all this stuff that I'm experiencing. So it isn't just me, it really is quality learning. She's in a different school, at a different place in our district, and she couldn't say enough about what her kids got out of our Unit 4 that she just finished piloting in her classroom.
Which is so reinforcing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Anybody else want to weigh in on this conversation?
I'm Kara Boyd, and I teach kindergarten. And one of the big game changers for me as a teacher is that we've gone from having students learn in isolation to learn in a much more natural thematic learning sequence. And my students are just so excited to learn. They dive right into whatever we're working on, and they're making connections throughout the day with everything we're doing. And we go from one unit to the next, and there's a natural sequence of learning. And they take what they what they learned in the last unit, carry it right over, and it just strengthens their learning.
Excellent.
And they're just so excited. And
Good.
again, I feel the same way. I couldn't go back
Yeah, excellent,
to
excellent.
teaching in isolation like that.
Well, I can't wait till I have your kids, because they won't know a different way of learning.
Oh, let's talk a little bit about
They
that.
won't, and it's
Right.
very
We're going to see
exciting.
some real
Yeah,
growth.
the first few months I had to break
Mhm.
through my kids because they were used to doing school this certain way.
Right.
And 3 years from now, 4 years from now, when the incoming kindergartners that are current are now 4th graders, I'm so excited about what that's going to look like.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and there's been a higher level of rigor too, even though students are engaged in authentic experiences that sometimes feel like play. I think with the Common Core standards and with the units that you've written that I've read, there's a higher degree of rigor too as to what you're expecting from your students. Would you all concur with that?
I completely agree, and one of the things that I think that we're gonna see that I think is gonna make a major change in the way students learn and the way we teach is that I think you're gonna see a big change in self-assessment. I think that's something that we're implementing even at the kindergarten level. Our kids are looking at their own writing, they're looking at their own work, and they're able to say, I know that I needed to have all of these things in this piece of work that I did. And they can look at it and decide for themselves, yes, I did that, or I did that okay, but I could make it better in this way. I can't imagine what a game changer that's gonna be in the upper grades.
Yeah, you're teaching kids now at very young ages to think about their own thinking and to be
Right.
responsible for their
Right.
own learning.
And exactly. to
And
take
not just to depend on the
responsibility
teacher.
for that learning.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
I'm seeing that in your units,
It's
and
a
I'm so
major
excited.
shift.
Yeah,
Some
it
of
is.
that content too, as they progress through school and college and career and beyond in life, some of that content will become less relevant to them depending on what they do. But the skills that they are now acquiring,
Right.
constructing their own understandings, thinking skeptically and critically and engaging in a scholarly manner, challenging politely, all those things that we know are attributes of successful people. That's what's so exciting to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a different, I'm Tiffany and I'm the TOSA for the district, specifically with this RCD process. And I've had the unique perspective of being able to go to all the different sites and talk to teachers and go and talk to students and get all of their feedback. And in the beginning, I remember I was in a 2nd grade classroom talking to the teacher, and she was like, I have to be completely honest. I saw the unit and I did not think that my students would be able to, I thought the rigor was too high. I've had taught 2nd grade for a number of years and they were not going to be successful. And towards the end she goes, I was learning from my kids. They all stepped up, they enjoyed it so much that, I think that play part, but that rigor was still there, that they didn't even realize, how hard they were working. And she was like, I was floored, and she was excited. She knew that we'd only asked her to pilot the 1 unit, but she was planning on working through as many as the teams could get ready. And I think that's been awesome, that the conversations with students. I went to Gladys's showcase for one of her 6th grade extravaganzas, and I was talking to the kids, and they were so eager to share their learning and really share it as a group. Give each other credit for, well, she worked on this part of it and I worked on this part of it, and then it was great. And I said, so how about the style of learning? And one of the students said that one of her big takeaways was that it was a shared learning experience. Just because you had found the resource, you were happy to share it with me, and that was okay. That was okay to share this resource because we were we still were responsible
What, it
for.
wasn't cheating?
No, it wasn't. And I remember one of our other students, my favorite thing, I said, what was your best part? And she said she really felt like she had the time to really learn what she wanted to learn and what she needed to learn. It wasn't just get through this, there's an end product. It was she really felt like she had the time to get the learning out of it. And I was like, it was her whole understanding of her learning process was, I was so impressed. I was like, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. It was awesome.
Great.
I've definitely noticed that. I teach second grade. My name's Shelley, and just the level of maturity as learners that has changed from what it used to be. From the students, they're used to being just a receptacle, and teacher tells me what to do, and I do this worksheet and whatever. And you're right, they're working together so beautifully, and they're supporting each other, and they know, oh, my friend here really needs help with that certain skill, so they just automatically do it now. They're so used to that type of environment. It's beautiful.
Where they get to learn from one another, and that's
Uh-huh.
very powerful. And research tells us how powerful that is.
And in a supportive way. They're not,
Exactly.
They don't put each other down like they used to. Like,
Right.
you only got a 42,
Yeah.
They don't do
Yeah,
that anymore.
excellent.
They really support each other.
In this process, there's an awful lot of collaboration and learning growth with the teachers as well. If you would, talk a little bit about what it's been like to be on these RCD teams, because you've given a great deal of time and a lot of brain power. So you all chose to continue with this process because you were given options not to, and you've chosen to be on these teams. Talk a little bit about some of the benefits to you, or whatever else, some of the drawbacks as well, in participating in this process now that you're near the end of writing your units for the year. Talk a little bit about your experiences on these teams.
Well, I'll share first. It's been so intellectually stimulating because when we lived in isolation, we missed out on the brain power of our colleagues. And so as much as I hate being out of my classroom, I've loved being with my team because the creativity, just like with our students, the creativity keeps pouring up. And then one good idea leads to another good idea. Or we regroup and we go, well, that's gonna suck.
Right.
It's okay to say that. And
Yeah.
then you come up with a better idea, which my experience in the classroom and in the RCD team is that it's been very parallel, that the student that was always put down and had great ideas is now coming up and feeling validated, and maybe they weren't a great test taker, but they're a great performer. And so the intellectual level within my classroom it's risen higher than I expected, and I do have high expectations. So, but I love the group that I work with, the energy in the room. When you walk in, you just feel the sparks. And then when we leave, we're still sparking, although we're leaving with a pile of more things we have to do.
And that's true as well.
And there's the ownership, and our kids have ownership. And I think all of those things are helping us as professionals as well as our students to grow personally. That personal growth, once again, that you can't measure on a ABCD test.
Right.
I think coming from a different special ed perspective, it's been really enlightening, just getting invited to the table and also just feeling part of a team. A lot of times there's a lot of isolation in special education, and those are your kids or your classroom, and being a part of this has changed all that, both for teachers in special education, but also for our students.
Yeah.
They're so much more included, and the rigorous curriculum design is naturally built for differentiation and including all kids at every level with their strengths as opposed to focusing on their weaknesses.
Well said. Absolutely.
I agree. I'm Danielle Lopez, first grade. I definitely think that the way that the units are designed, where we have an engaging scenario, so we're starting off with a purpose, and then each task is building up there, is been awesome for the students to be able to have a purpose and a reason to get there. But along the way, there's been so much things that the teachers can choose. So, we're learning about harvest right now. So there's a bunch of books that are optional, but sometimes we have our favorite books, and sometimes we don't have enough. But when you talk to your colleagues, whether it's here at the RCD team or at your site, you kind of talk, well, this was really good because it had this element, and you can really teach it that way. So the process
and the dialogue that's occurring is just constantly making me become a better educator. And I haven't looked at it through those eyes. So let me look at, so next time when I'm looking and evaluating to whether to use a book or not, I'm looking at it through those eyes.
That's terrific.
And I think before I was a TOSA, I was on the 6th grade team, and I think what we first realized when we all sat down together was we have a very diverse district and we had a very diverse team. We had one teacher who was a gate specialist, an EL specialist, and representatives from all 4 of our zones, and that made the conversation so much richer and our unit so much better, because every time we did something, it was, that's not going to work for my kids. Okay, so how do we make it work for your kids? And that was really, really beneficial. The other thing that I've experienced is as we've had our grade level professional development days, we do them by individual grade levels, and I think the teams here have been done such a good job in structuring them and developing them so the teachers get the most out of them. And my favorite part is just watching all of the same teachers from one grade level in one room, grouped up. I mean, talk about working off the brain power of your colleagues. It's been so exciting to watch, and I think we're seeing such a shift, and people are so excited to collaborate again and feel validated and know that what they're saying and doing and producing is meaningful and helping one another. And I think we have to just kind of tap into that and make sure that we continue that forward, because that has just been, and the energy in the room is fantastic.
The best professional learning of all.
Yeah, it really is.
I told my students at the beginning of the year that whether you're the teacher or the student in the classroom, that at times it feels like we're a hamster on the wheel. And for years I felt like a hamster on the wheel. Now we're the mouse in the maze, and because of all the creativity, and we don't really know what the outcome is going to be because we're working in groups. And so my students often will say, oh, this week's feeling a little bit like the hamster on the wheel. Man, I love the maze. And so we kind of have that together. And whether, as the teacher, I often feel like, oh, I love this maze, because I don't know what's going to be the outcome.
Right,
Well, and
right.
we're modeling for them that that's real world.
And it's
too.
okay.
It's okay
It's
to, not
okay.
everything is perfect.
Yeah.
The first time you do something, it's not always going to be exactly right. And who's to say what right is? You can always improve too, and we're modeling that over and over for them.
If you get to a wall, it's okay. Turn around,
And
go back, and
that's
look
what-
for another way.
That's what rigor is.
Uh-huh.
Rigor is
Figuring
learners
out.
are very
Well, and that's what
challenging.
learning
It
is
should-
supposed to be.
Yeah, exactly. It should be a little bit. You should be a little uncomfortable when you're learning something new because the answer isn't right in front of you. And
Right.
That's what it is. So.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you all. I think you are extraordinary educators, and it's been a real privilege to work with you through this process. And I'm very excited about next year when we really do implementation district-wide to continue to refine this work. So congratulations to you for a year well spent and a job well done. And we'll revisit this conversation again next year. So thank you.
Thank you.